At all these studies, Ged was apt, and within a month was bettering lads who had been a year at Roke before him. Especially the tricks of illusion came to him so easily that it seemed he'd been born knowing them and needed only to be reminded. The master hand was a gentle and light-hearted old man who had endless delight in the wit and beauty of the crafts he taught. Ged soon felt no awe of him, but asked him for this spell and that spell, and always the master smiled and showed him what he wanted. But one day, having put it in his mind to put Jasper to shame at last, Ged said to the master hand in the court of seeming, "Sir, all these charms are much the same. Knowing one, you know them all. And as soon as the spell weaving ceases, the illusion vanishes. Now, if I make a pebble into a diamond," and he did so with a word and a flick of his wrist, "what must I do to make that diamond remain diamond? How is the changing spell locked and made to last?" The master hand looked at the jewel that glittered on Ged's palm, bright as the prize of a dragon's hoard. The old master murmured one word, "Tolk," and there lay the pebble, no jewel, but a rough gray bit of rock. The master took it, held it out in his own hand. "This is a rock, Tolk in the true speech," he said, looking mildly up at Ged now. "A bit of the stone of which Roke Isle is made, a little bit of the dry land on which men live. It is itself. It is part of the world. By the illusion change, you can make it look like a diamond or a flower or a fly or an eye or a flame." The rock flickered from shape to shape as he named them and returned to rock. "But that is mere seeming. Illusion fools the beholder's senses. It makes him see and hear and feel that the thing is changed, but it does not change the thing. To change this rock into a jewel, you must change its true name. And for you to do that, my son, even on so small a scrap of the world, is to change the world. It can be done. Indeed, it can be done. It is the art of the master changer. And you will learn it when you are ready to learn it. But you must not change one thing, one pebble, one grain of sand, until you know what good and evil will follow on that act. The world is in balance, in equilibrium. A wizard's power of changing and summoning can shake the balance of the world. It is dangerous, that power. It is most perilous. It must follow knowledge and serve need. To light a candle is to cast a shadow." He looked down at the pebble again. "A rock is a good thing too, you know," he said, speaking less gravely. "If the Isles of Earthsea were all made of diamond, we'd lead a hard life today. Enjoy illusions, lad, and let the rocks be rocks." He smiled, but Ged left unsatisfied. Press a mage for his secrets, and he would always talk like Ogion about balance and danger. In the dark, surely a wizard, one who had gone past these childish tricks of illusion to the true arts of summoning and change, was powerful enough to do what he pleased, to balance the world as it seemed best to him, drive back darkness with his own light. In the corridor, he met Jasper, who, since Ged's accomplishments, began to be praised about the school. He spoke to him in a way that seemed more friendly, but was more scoffing. "You look gloomy, Sparrowhawk," he said now. "Did your juggling charms go wrong?" Seeking as always to put himself on equal footing with Jasper, Ged answered the question, ignoring its ironic tone. "I'm sick of juggling," he said. "Sick of these illusion tricks, fit only to amuse idle lords in their castles and domains. The only true magic they've taught me yet on Roke is making weir light or some weather working. That the rest is mere foolery." "Even foolery is dangerous," said Jasper, "in the hands of a fool." At that, Ged turned as if he had been slapped, and he took a step towards Jasper, but the older boy smiled as if he had not intended any insult. He nodded his head in his stiff, graceful way, and he went on. Standing there with rage in his heart, looking after Jasper, Ged swore to himself to outdo his rival, and not in some mere illusion match, but in a test of power. He would prove himself and humiliate Jasper. He would not let the fellow stand there looking down on him, graceful, disdainful, hateful. Ged did not stop to think why Jasper might hate him. He only knew why he hated Jasper. The other apprentices had soon learned they could seldom match themselves against Ged, either in sport or in earnest, and they said of him, some in praise and some in spite, "He's a wizard born, he'll never let you beat him." Jasper alone neither praised him nor avoided him. He simply looked down at him, smiling slightly. And therefore Jasper stood alone as his rival, who must be put to shame. He did not see, or would not see, that in his rivalry, which he clung to and fostered as part of his own pride, there was anything of the danger, of the darkness, of which the master hand had mildly warned him. When he was not moved by pure rage, he knew very well that he was not, as yet, no match for Jasper or any of the older boys, and so he kept at his work and he went on as usual. At the end of the summer, the work was slackened somewhat, so there was more time for sport, spellboat races down the harbor, feats of illusion in the courts of the great house, and in the long evenings in the groves, wild games of hide and seek, where hiders and seeker were both invisible, and only voices moved, laughing and calling among the trees, following and dodging the quick, faint weir lights. Then, as autumn came, they set to their tasks afresh, practicing new magic. So Ged's first months at Roke went by fast, full of passions and wonders. Winter it was different. He was sent with 7 other boys across Roke Island to the farthest northmost cape, where stands the Isolate Tower. There, by himself, lived the Master Namer, who was called by a name that had no meaning in any language, Kurem Karmarok. No farm or dwelling lay within miles of the tower. Grim it stood above the northern cliffs, gray were the clouds over the seas of winter. Endless the lists and ranks and rounds of names that the Namer's 8 pupils must learn. Amongst them in the tower's high room, Kurem Karmarok sat on a high seat, writing down lists of names that must be learned before the ink faded at midnight, leaving the parchment blank again. It was cold and half dark, and always silent there except for the scratching of the master's pen and the sighing, maybe, of a student who must learn before midnight the name of every cape, point, bay, sound, inlet, channel, harbor, shallows, reef, and rock of the shores of Lossau, a tiny islet in the Pelnish Sea. If the student complained to the master might say nothing, but lengthen the list, or he might say, he who would be sea master must know the true name of every drop of water in the sea. Ged sighed sometimes, but he did not complain. He saw that in this dusty and fathomless matter of learning the true name of every place, thing, and being, the power that he wanted lay like a jewel at the bottom of a dry well. For magic consists in this, the true naming of a thing. So Kurem Karmarok had said to him once, their first night at the tower. He never repeated it, but Ged did not forget his words. Many a mage of great power, he had said, has spent his whole life to find out the name of one single thing, one single lost or hidden name. And still the lists are not finished, nor will they be till world's end. Listen and you will see why. In the world under the sun, and in the other world that has no sun, there is much that has nothing to do with man and man's speech. There are powers beyond our power. But magic, true magic, is worked only by those beings who speak the Hardic tongue of Earthsea, or the old speech from which it grew. That is the language dragons speak, and the language Segoy spoke, who made the islands of the world, and the language of our lays and songs, spells, enchantments, and invocations. Its words lie hidden and changed among our Hardic words. We call the foam on waves Sukien. That word is made from 2 words of the old speech, Suk, feather, and Inien, the sea. Feather of the sea is foam. But you cannot charm the foam by calling it Sukien. You must use its true name in the old speech, which is Essa. Now, any witch knows a few of the old words in the old speech, and a mage knows many. But there are many more, and some have been lost over the ages, and some have been hidden, and some are known only to dragons and to the old powers of earth, and some are known to no living creature, and no man could learn them all, for there is no end to that language. Here is the reason. The sea's name is Inyan, well and good, but what we call the inmost sea has its own name also in the old speech. Since no thing can have two true names, Inyan can only mean all the sea except the inmost sea. And of course it does not only mean that, for there are seas and bays and straits beyond counting that bear names of their own. So if some mage sea master were mad enough to try to lay a spell of storm or calm over all the ocean, his spell mustn't say not only that word Inyan, but the name of every stretch and bit and part of the sea through all the archipelago and all the outer reaches and beyond to where names cease. Thus, that which gives us the power to work magic sets the limits of that power. A mage can only control what is near him, what he can name exactly and wholly, and this is well. If it were not so, the wickedness of the power or the folly of the wise would have long ago sought to change what cannot be changed, and equilibrium would fail. The unbalanced sea would overwhelm the islands where we perilously dwell, and in the old silence all voices and all names would be lost. Ged thought long on these words, and they went deep into his understanding. Yet the majesty of the task could not make the work of that long year in the tower less hard and dry, and at the end of the year, Kurem Karmarok said to him, "You've made a good beginning, but no more. Wizards speak truth, and it was true that all the mastery of the names that Ged had toiled to win that year was the mere start of what he must go on learning his whole life. He was let go from the isolate tower sooner than those who had come with him, for he had learned quicker, but that was all the praise he got.